What's up, guys? Welcome to the T-Triple-G Garage. Today I'm introducing a new car to the channel. Welcome to the 3.2 liter swapped 4Motion Bora that we imported from, we didn't import this one, but it was imported from Japan. And this is a bit of a special car because this car was available for sale for import from Japan. Well, I was shopping for my Bora 4Motion, and I had the choice between two colors, black Magic Pearl or Jazz Blue. And honestly, I'm a little chooched that I passed up Jazz Blue as the option for my 4Motion Bora because it just gets all the looks and all the attention, and it's way cooler than mine. So let me give you guys a quick tour of this car. Another thing that's cool about this car is that I was the one who did the 3.2 liter swap on it, and it was actually during another buddy of mine's ownership where I convinced him to buy this car. It was pretty much totally stock. We went in the pursuit of more power, and more power was the 3.2 liter VR6 swap. Now eventually that buddy got bored of the car and he sold it, and the next owner enjoyed it for a little while, but decided that he wanted to trade my other buddy Mason for another car. So now Mason actually has this car, and I get the chance to make some content with it. My previous buddy had put these brand new OEM dealer ordered Aristos on the car to mimic the sedan form of an R32 because it is a cool Jazz Blue color, similar to the cool deep blue pearl of the R32. Now what's also cool about the 4Motion Boras is that if you look at the dashboard, it's a little different than a regular Golf or Jetta. If you look close enough, that is the dimple dash from a Mark IV R32. You can see as well, these are Bora Sport 4Motion door sills. Pretty cool. And then since this is a JDM car, we do have the JDM airbag scripture. Now these full load Bora 4Motions in Japan, they did come with these sweet leather Recaros. They are power and heated. So there's a lot of subtle and unique features to the Bora 4Motion that I'd like to show off. You'll have to excuse the mess, but if you notice, this driver's side door card doesn't have a trunk release or a fuel door release, so you get a large pocket at the bottom. Now you may be wondering, how do you open the trunk in this thing, and how do you open the fuel door? So it has kind of the Jetta City style button in the center console down here, and then you may be thinking for the trunk that you just simply use the key fob, but that's not the case because the key fob only has two buttons, which is super awesome. There's less buttons to press around in your pocket. So how you open the trunk, you just hit unlock, and on the Bora 4Motions, there is actually a physical button similar to the Jetta wagons in the trunk boot. While I'm in the back, might as well show off these beautiful GLI taillights that we installed. The factory taillights on the Bora 4Motion, a little too vanilla for my liking. Another unique feature to this car is that the door locks are all two-stage, so when you hit the lock, you can almost hear it lock twice. Another cool feature, other than these xenon projector lights that come factory, we have little headlight washers. However, it doesn't work on my car and it doesn't work on this car. But another bonus is that you get the 5.5 liter washer bottle under the hood, so you don't have to fill your washer fluid as frequently in this car. We also have rain sensing wipers, which was a feature on North American cars, but here it is standard in the Bora 4Motion. Here's a good shot at the power leather Recaros. Another unique feature with the Bora 4Motion here is that if you throw it in reverse, the power mirrors will automatically tilt down so that you can view the curb better. Unfortunately, it is not working right now to demonstrate. And the other cool thing is that the Bora 4Motions have power folding mirrors, so that I can demonstrate right now. Hello. Going into the rear seats, not only do we have the Recaros continuing here, but we have what no other North American Jetta has, a rear center armrest that folds out with the lid. Pretty sweet. We also have, as standard, a sunshade, which North American GLXs have, but it's cool to see in the Bora 4Motion. Now for the good part. We ripped out the stock 2.8 24 valve. That was only pushing 204 horsepower. And we upped it to a 3.2 liter Touareg engine. So this video, I'm going to be covering exactly what I did to put this 3.2 liter Touareg engine into essentially a Jetta. Now I will say, if you can find a Mark 1 Audi TT donor car, or if you can find even a Mark 2 Audi TT 3.2 engine, or an Audi A3 one, now the management will differ, and you'll need to use the different ECU file that has the differences for the variable valve tech and the compression ratios. But those are a bit more of a straight swap. You may still have to swap a few things like the fuel rail, but you're gonna need specifically a Mark IV R32 fuel rail for that. Anyways, today I'm gonna be discussing what I had to do to this Touareg engine for it to fit in the Jetta, because obviously that thing's mounted longitudinally, and we need to put it in something that's transverse. It should be obvious that a Mark IV Golf R32 engine would be a total straight swap. However, obviously, as we know, those are very rare, and if you come by one, it's going to be very expensive. So that's why you would want to do a Touareg engine, a Q7 engine, because you can get them at the wrecker for dirt cheap. But the downside is that you have to put in the grunt work into transferring all the parts and sourcing new parts to be able to get it to work into your car. Another car that you can get this engine from is a Porsche Cayenne. Now, I would recommend staying away from the Cayenne blocks if possible, because sometimes you can find that the front side of the engine, where the passenger side drive engine mount would typically go, there's actually no drilled area or tapped area in the block to be able to put that side engine mount on, so that you can hang it in your transverse car. So you can use that engine. It's more work. You know, you're gonna want a large drill press and just be able to precisely tap that and know the depths and whatnot. So if you can, stick to a Touareg engine. Some Touareg engines also weren't tapped. Just make sure that when you're looking, that ideally that engine has those holes. There are a few different engine codes that you can go with. There's BAA, BMX, a few others that I'm forgetting. Just do your research. There are different compression ratios, and there are year model differences. So like I was talking about earlier, some of the later 3.2s are going to have that different variation in the variable valve tech, where they actually have more adjustment, and you're going to want to make sure that your engine management software matches that. Now, what's cool about this swap is that you can actually retain the OEM ECU from the 4Motion Bora that is a 2.8 24 valve. You don't actually have to go out and buy a 3.2 ECU and hope for the best. You can, if you have a good tuner, all he has to do is, you know, pick out the file and flash it to your Bora 4Motion ECU. So our tuner flashed, basically, this is a BAA 3.2. I believe it's the higher compression ratio one, which is perfect if you're going to try and keep it NA, because you're going to get the most power possible. It's about a half point compression ratio higher than a Mark IV R32. So it's technically a little spicier. And then on top of that, we threw, you know, a stage 1, stage 2, 93 octane file on there, and this thing pushes about 262 horsepower, maybe slightly more. All right, bubbling down from the ECU and software side of things, you're also going to need your original engine harness. You will have to transfer your 2.8 24 valve harness to your Touareg engine, because obviously that Touareg harness is not going to work. It's not going to have any correct connections for your Jetta, but thankfully the 2.8 harness transfers perfectly to the 3.2. All the solenoids, injectors, all those connectors are the same, aux water pump, etc. Another thing that's going to be different is your fuel rail. So basically what we did on this car was we put a Mark IV R32 fuel rail on. The Touareg ones, at least from this motor, was PWM controlled pump. So it actually didn't have a return side, it only had a feed side. Now, if you can do some fabrication, you can turn that fuel rail into one that has a feed and return. But we just opted to source a Mark IV R32 fuel rail. That is kind of hard to find these days, so you may have to do that. Another thing that is different is the exhaust manifolds. Now, your 2.8 24 manifolds, you can use them. However, you're going to want to port match them with the 3.2 cylinder head, because the ports are much larger on the 3.2, and the 2.8 manifolds are actually still smaller ports. They sized them correctly to the cylinder head. It wasn't just 3.2 manifolds mass produced, stick it on every 24 valve. So that's what we ended up doing on this one. Your other option would be obviously Mark IV R32 exhaust manifolds. You can't really use the Mark V ones. The angle is different, because ideally you're going to want to retain your stock Bora 4Motion downpipe. Now, if you've looked at the Touareg motor, some of the more obvious things is going to be, your engine mounts. So you're going to want to swap your side engine mount, and then your accessory bracket. So the entire accessory bracket on the Touareg in the bin, and remove your 2.8 24 valve accessory bracket, your alternator, all that stuff. You're going to want to transfer over to your 3.2 Touareg engine, alongside obviously your accessory bracket and all your accessories, AC, power steering, whatever. You're going to need your original belt and tensioner. So basically all of that stuff swapped to the 3.2. A bit of work there, not horrible. Where it gets a bit icky is that you do have to rip off the oil pan. The Touareg one obviously has to clear a large subframe, and so it's very shallow at the one side and very deep at the other side. And as a result, the oil pump and oil pickup is completely different. So you're going to have to rip off your oil pan, and you're going to have to rip off your oil pump on both motors. So you're going to need a way of having them ideally both in the air, either one on the engine stand, one on the crane, whatever is safe, and swap them. All of your cooling pieces are going to be different. So basically just whatever you have on your 2.8, you're going to ideally want to swap it over. The oil cooler is going to be different, same thing. So basically we just swapped the entire 2.8 24 valve oil filter housing, oil cooler, crack pipe, thermostat housing. That all got swapped over to the Touareg engine, so that it was a straight bolt up with all our coolant hoses. Now things get tricky again when you go to the intake tube. Obviously your 2.8 intake tube is going to be much smaller than your 3.2. The throttle bodies are completely different sizes. You're also going to want a Mark IV R32 mass airflow sensor. I believe you can also use a Mark V R32 mass airflow sensor. So basically one of those, and then ideally in a perfect world you'd find a Mark IV R32 airbox. Unfortunately those are hard to come by these days, so we had to go with a 45-degree silicone with the pod filter. It's honestly worse than a stock airbox, as you're kind of sucking in some of the hot engine bay air. Unless you can build your own enclosure with the bottom half of your original airbox, which would be a good option. At last we have a floating pod filter. Now the other modification is going to be to your engine wiring harness, so that one of the connectors can actually reach your new PCV valve. On this engine, it's located directly into the intake manifold, whereas on the 2.8, it's built into the intake pipe. So instead of going one way, it's going the other, but we need a bit more length, so you're gonna have to extend 2 wires in the engine wiring harness so that it can plug in. The nice thing is, because it's integrated into the intake manifold, you don't have to worry about getting some sort of custom intake pipe that's gonna have the port for your PCV valve like you do on the 2.8. So are we done yet? No. I mean, almost. So the clutch, you can actually use your stock clutch from your 2.8 on the 3.2. However, I would recommend going with the 3.2 liter clutch. It handles more power and it's got a lighter pedal feel. For me personally, I love that for daily driving. If you like a stiffer pedal, the 2.8 one is good, but ironically, just the pressure plate and clutch design, it handles less power. So it'll cap out at 300 foot-pounds of torque. If you're staying NA, that's gonna be plenty. If you wanna eventually supercharge or boost it, highly recommend a Mark IV R32 clutch because it can actually withstand boosted power. It's been on Jaden's car, brought it to hell and back, and somehow it's still alive. So would highly recommend that. But you can't go too crazy with it. You can't go like too much over 400 horsepower, especially if you have heavy torque spikes, it will slip. Just gonna barge in here too and say that these connectors at the back of the manifold, very breakable. So as you can see here, this is actually our brake booster hose. I did have to end up using some somewhat rigid heater hose to repair this broken plastic. But as you can see, so normally it's a one-piece quick connect. You can actually cut the molded plastic off of the end fitting and slide it onto some heater hose like this, and then you don't have to worry about sourcing expensive non-broken versions of the hose. You just have to make sure that whatever hose you use is rigid enough to where it doesn't collapse during vacuum. In the next video, we're going to be putting this thing on suspension because, as you can see, it's stock ride height. It's very high up. It's monster truck-like. And we want to throw some spacers on it, and we want to dump it on these Aristos and show off the nice custom exhaust system that we've put on this car in a future video. So if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more of this car, also hit that subscribe button. Leave a like and a comment below. I don't usually ask for this, but please tell us what you think about this car, what you think about your own car, whatever, I don't care. Just show us some loves. Thanks for watching.